When my sister got arrested, my parents cried like they'd lost everything. When I nearly died, they barely blinked. My father actually said, "If one of you has to go, it's better you than her." That was the day I stopped calling them my family. I've always known I was the afterthought in my family. Not because anyone ever said it out loud, but because of the way things were done. The way things always were. I was the older daughter, quiet, responsible, and the kind of child who never caused any trouble. But my sister? Oh, she was the center of their world from the moment she was born. I remember when she crashed her first car. She was only 17, driving recklessly with her music blasting, and ended up slamming it into a stop sign. The first thing my mom said when she got the call wasn't, "Is she okay?" It was, "Poor thing must have been scared out of her mind." My dad drove her home like she was a victim of something instead of the one who caused it. And a week later she had a brand new car sitting in the driveway. Same model. Nicer color. Now compare that to when I graduated with honors from college. Top of my class. 4 years of working part-time jobs and studying through the night just to make something of myself. I called them weeks in advance, sent the invitation, and even reminded them the day before. On graduation day I stood there scanning the crowd, dressed in my cap and gown. They never showed up. Later Mom said they lost track of time, and Dad just said, "We didn't think it was a big deal, honey. It's just a ceremony." That moment stuck with me. It still stings when I think about it. Because it wasn't just a ceremony. It was my life's work, my hard-earned success. And they didn't care. But if it had been my sister, they would have shown up with banners, balloons, and tears in their eyes. She was the baby. The one they always said needed more attention. When she messed up, it was just a phase. When I struggled, it was because I wasn't trying hard enough. I learned early on that I had to take care of myself, emotionally and otherwise. I didn't expect hugs after a bad day. I didn't expect praise or support. I stopped asking for it altogether. My sister could skip school, lie about it, and somehow she'd still end up getting a shopping trip out of it. I once came home with a perfect report card and all I got was a passing, "That's nice," while my mom scrolled through her phone. As I got older, I stopped trying to win their approval. Not because I didn't want it, but because I knew I'd never get it. The truth is, I started talking less at dinner. I laughed less. I made myself smaller, hoping maybe someone would notice the space I was leaving empty. But they never did. My sister filled every room with her noise, her chaos, her problems. And they always responded with love, concern, and patience. For me, there was just silence. I didn't hate her. I just hated the way they loved her so loudly and loved me so quietly. Or maybe not at all. There were nights I'd lie in bed wondering what I did wrong. Why I wasn't enough. Why I had to keep proving myself just to be seen. I never got an answer. So I just learned to live around the ache. I smiled at family dinners. I helped clean up while my sister laughed in the living room. I was the good daughter. The quiet one. The one they never had to worry about. But inside, I was disappearing. Things truly unraveled the summer my sister got arrested. I had just gotten home from work, kicked off my shoes, and sat down with a cup of tea when my phone buzzed. It was a text from my mother. "Call me. It's serious." My stomach sank immediately. My first thought was something happened to Dad. Maybe his heart. Maybe a fall. But when I called, it wasn't about him at all. "She's been taken in," Mom whispered like her world had collapsed. "Your sister. The police. They said something about embezzlement." I didn't say anything at first. Just sat there, phone pressed to my ear, staring at the wall like maybe I hadn't heard her right. Apparently, my sister had been siphoning money from her company's client accounts. Nothing small either. Tens of thousands over the course of 2 years. When they caught on, they had all the proof lined up. Emails. Transactions. Everything. By the next day, it was front-page news in our small town. My parents went into full panic mode. You would have thought she'd been wrongly accused the way they carried on. Crying. Shouting. Pacing. Dad couldn't sleep. Mom couldn't eat. It was like a storm hit our family and only she was worth shielding. Me. I just sat on the couch watching. Lawyers don't come cheap, especially the kind who might actually reduce a sentence in a case like this. My parents didn't blink. Within days they mortgaged their house. Drained nearly every cent from their retirement fund. I even saw Mom hand over her wedding jewelry, real gold passed down from her own mother. She sold it without hesitation. They didn't even discuss it with me. It was just understood. This was what needed to be done to save my sister. I remember one afternoon standing in the kitchen while Mom prepared tea with trembling hands. She looked so tired, so aged all of a sudden. And I asked quietly, "What if this doesn't work? What if she really did all of it?" She turned to me with wet eyes and snapped, "She just made a mistake. She's still our baby. Our baby." Those words echoed in my head for days. No one had called me their baby in my entire adult life. Maybe not even when I was a baby. It was like watching a movie I'd seen before. Only this time the stakes were so much higher. My sister cried in court and they rushed to comfort her. She looked ashamed and they held her tighter. Dad spoke about how she had so much potential and just got a little lost. Even the lawyer called her a young woman from a good home. I was there for every court appearance. Quiet. Present. I brought food to the house when they forgot to eat. I offered rides. Support. Not once did anyone turn to me and ask, "How are you holding up?" Because I wasn't the one who mattered. I never had been. I could already feel what would happen if the roles were reversed. If it had been me sitting in that courtroom accused and disgraced, would they have sold the house? Would they have fought for me like that? No. I didn't even need to ask. I knew the answer. That silent knowledge sat with me for days like a stone on my chest. And that was when something inside me finally stopped hoping they'd change. A few months after the trial, I started feeling numbness in my left leg. At first I blamed long work hours, poor posture, maybe just age catching up with me. But the numbness turned into sharp, shooting pain that woke me up at night. Then came the weakness. I couldn't walk up the stairs without gripping the railing like a child. I finally saw a doctor, and after several scans and tests, the diagnosis came back: spinal stenosis. A narrowing in my spine pressing against nerves. Left untreated, it could lead to permanent nerve damage, even paralysis. The doctor told me I needed surgery. Not an option, a necessity. It wasn't immediate life or death, but it was close. And the cost? Way beyond what I had saved. My insurance barely covered half. I would have to pay the rest out of pocket, and I didn't have it. I remember sitting in my car after that appointment, staring at my hands on the steering wheel. They were shaking. I had always been the strong one. The responsible one. The one who never asked for help. But that day I knew I had to. So I went home and called my parents. I didn't want to go in person. Maybe because I already knew what was coming. I kept my voice steady. Told them what the doctor said. Explained the risks. That the surgery needed to happen soon. That I didn't have the money. There was a long pause on the line. Then Dad cleared his throat. "We already gave everything to your sister's legal battle," he said. "We mortgaged the house, you know that. There's nothing left." I waited. Maybe he was just leading with that. Maybe he was about to say, "But we'll figure something out. We'll help somehow." But he didn't. He sighed heavily. "If one of you has to go, it's better you than her. She wouldn't survive it." I didn't know what to say. My tongue felt heavy in my mouth. Then Mom's voice came through. "Matter of fact, your sister has always needed us more than you. She doesn't have your strength." That was it. No emotion. No, "I'm sorry." No, "we'll try." Just that, as if I were some extra limb they could afford to lose. I sat on my couch after hanging up, phone still in my hand, and stared into the empty living room. My body was shaking, but my face was dry. I didn't cry. That was the day they buried me alive. Not with dirt, not with stones, but with their words. With their silence. With their choice. I wasn't angry. Not then. I didn't scream. I didn't beg. Something deeper happened. Something quieter. I felt like a door had shut inside me forever, and for once I didn't try to pry it back open. I looked around at the small apartment I had built for myself brick by brick over the years. My own space. My peace. Everything I had was because I fought for it alone. And I realized, maybe that was my gift. My curse too, but mostly my freedom. They had chosen her. And now I would choose myself. After that call with my parents, I sat alone in my apartment for hours. No one came. No one asked. My phone didn't ring again. The pain in my back was getting worse. Some mornings I couldn't feel my left foot. But I still got up, still moved, still tried to function. I had no choice. I started going through my things. I listed my furniture online. My couch, my dining table, even the small coffee table I bought years ago when I first moved in. The memories attached to them didn't matter anymore. They were just things now, and I needed every dollar. I sold my car next. Took the bus after that. It was humbling sitting beside strangers every day, knowing I was breaking apart inside and nobody could see it. But I held my head high. A friend of mine, Carol from my old workplace, offered me her couch for a few weeks. She didn't ask questions. Just said, "Stay as long as you need." That kind of quiet kindness. I hadn't realized how much I needed it. To make ends meet, I picked up night shifts at a 24-hour diner. During the day, I worked part-time as a receptionist at a small medical clinic. Every hour counted. I remember one night at the diner. It was 3 a.m. and my back felt like it was on fire. I dropped a tray of coffee mugs because my fingers went numb again. My manager looked at me like I was useless, but I picked them up, cleaned the mess, and went right back to the counter. I wasn't working just for money anymore. I was working to survive. To live. Sometimes I'd limp to the bathroom and lock the door, just to cry silently for a minute. Then I'd splash water on my face, pull myself together, and go back out. Pain became a part of me. But strangely so did strength. Not the loud kind. Not the kind that shouts or makes speeches. The quiet kind. The kind that keeps you standing when no one claps for you. One day, out of nowhere, I got a call from Mr. Langley, my old high school English teacher. He'd heard through someone what I was going through. "I don't have much," he said gently, "but I'd like to help a little." He mailed me a check for $500. It wasn't a huge amount, but it felt like a hug. Like someone still saw me. With everything I scraped together, selling my belongings, working 2 jobs, that small check from Mr. Langley, I finally had enough to cover the surgery. Just enough. The morning of the procedure, I signed the hospital forms alone. No family member waited for me in the lobby. No one brought flowers or sat by my bedside. But when I woke up after surgery, still groggy and in pain, something inside me felt lighter. I had done it. I had walked through fire and I had come out breathing. Recovery was hard. The physical therapy sessions made me cry more than once. I moved slowly, carefully, like a glass about to crack. But each day I got stronger. Bit by bit. I would sit by the window in Carol's apartment, watching the sunrise with a cup of tea, and I'd think about everything. The silence. The betrayal. But I also thought about the woman I had become. Not the version shaped by my family's love, but the version shaped by her own willpower. That's when it hit me. They were never my safety net. Not mom. Not dad. Not even the sister they gave everything to. I am my own safety net. And now that I had accepted that, I felt more powerful than I ever had before. Just as I was settling into my recovery, something unexpected happened. My grandmother passed away. She was 86, quiet, gentle, and always stayed out of family conflicts. We weren't close in the traditional sense, but there was always something unspoken between us. As a child, when my parents forgot my birthday or didn't show up for my school play, she'd be the one to quietly hand me a handmade card or slip a few dollars in my pocket with a soft smile. She never said much, but she noticed everything. After her funeral, which of course was all about my parents and sister, I didn't expect to hear anything else. I thought that chapter was closed. But then I got a call from a lawyer. At first I thought it was a mistake. "You might want to sit down," he said before continuing. "Your grandmother left everything to you." I didn't understand. Everything? "She wrote a private will," he explained. "Signed and witnessed. It's completely valid. She had left me her house, some land just outside town, a modest savings account, and something else. She'd also quietly transferred ownership rights to a small family business, the same business my parents had been running under her name for years. I had no idea it was technically still hers. Tears welled up in my eyes. I didn't even know how to process it. In a world where I had always been invisible, she had seen me. And not just seen me, trusted me. Attached to the legal documents was a handwritten letter. "You were always the quiet one," it read. "But you noticed everything. You never asked for anything, and that's why I want you to have it all. I know what they've done, how they've treated you. This is my way of making it right. Use it wisely." I sat there, stunned, rereading that letter at least 10 times. When I finally walked into the lawyer's office to sign the paperwork, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Not anger, not sadness, but power. Calm, steady power. I didn't rush into anything. I didn't tell anyone. Instead, I followed every legal step. I froze all business accounts, legally through the documents my grandmother had signed. I contacted the bank. I got the keys to the house and visited the land she left me. A peaceful place, open and green just on the edge of town. I stood there in the breeze and felt like I could breathe for the first time in months. Then I started making moves. I hired an accountant and a lawyer of my own. We began reviewing the business records my parents had kept so carelessly. There were a lot of inconsistencies, and more debt than they'd let on. Quietly, I transferred management rights to myself. It was all legal. All binding. I didn't shout. I didn't storm in or make dramatic phone calls. I just took control. With each signature, each approval, each document filed, I felt like I was reclaiming the years they stole from me. The years I spent trying to win their affection, their approval, their love. They had taken everything I had when I was at my weakest. And now, without lifting a single hand in anger, I was taking everything back. Piece by piece. They didn't know yet. But they would. And when they did, I wouldn't raise my voice. I wouldn't gloat. Because the best revenge is quiet. And I had learned to live in quiet all my life. It didn't take long for my parents and sister to realize what had happened. The first sign came when the electricity was cut off at the family business. Then I received an eviction notice, for the very building they had treated like their lifeblood for years. The bank accounts I had quietly frozen started bouncing. Their world, the one they had built on my silence and their blind favoritism, started crumbling faster than they could process it. I didn't call. I didn't visit. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me struggle with the decision. I had made it. And now I was standing firm. The silence between us was heavy, like a dark cloud hanging over everything. One day I saw the missed calls. A flood of them, from my mother, from my father, from my sister. I ignored all of them. I didn't need to hear what they had to say. I had already made up my mind. But then one voicemail stood out. It was my mother's voice, shaky and filled with desperation. "We made a mistake," she said, her words so soft, almost pleading. "Please. Just talk to us once. Please, sweetheart, don't do this. We're sorry. We never meant to hurt you." For a moment my heart wavered. I could hear the raw emotion in her voice. The apology I'd wanted to hear for so long. But then I remembered everything. I remembered how I had begged for help, how they had chosen my sister over me without a second thought. I didn't call back. Instead, I sat with the voicemail for a long time, listening to it over and over, letting the words sink in. Then there was a text from my sister. "You've made your point," she wrote coldly. "Don't forget we're family." I read the words over and over. The coldness in them stung, but I couldn't help but think. This was the same sister who had driven me to the brink, who had never once cared about me, only about herself. Her message was less of an apology and more of a warning, as if she had been the one wronged. I whispered to myself, exactly. And that's why it hurts. Because it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about the house, the business, or the land. It was about the years they had ignored me. The times they chose her over me. The times I had sat in the shadows, watching them pour all their love and attention on my sister, and being told over and over again that I wasn't enough. And now they were begging for me to talk to them. Begging for help. But this time there would be no more helping. I wasn't cruel. I didn't take pleasure in their suffering. But I wasn't going to be their safety net anymore. They had used me for so long and now the tables had turned. I stayed silent. The coldness in my sister's message stayed with me. It wasn't the words themselves. It was the lack of warmth, the lack of acknowledgement of what had really happened. I knew this wasn't about family anymore. It wasn't about love. It was about who had control, who had the power. And now, for the first time in my life, that person was me. I wasn't going to let them use me again. I left. It was the only thing I could do to finally have peace. I packed my things, left the city behind, and moved to a quiet town far from the chaos. The land I inherited from my grandmother became my sanctuary, a place where I could build a new life without the shadows of my past looming over me. I opened a small counseling center on the property, helping people who needed guidance. It felt good to do something meaningful, to take the control I had fought for and use it to help others. The work was fulfilling. It brought me a sense of peace I had never known before. Every time the phone rang and I saw their numbers flashing on the screen, I hung up. Every single time. I didn't need to hear what they had to say anymore. I didn't need their approval or their apologies. I had moved on, and in doing so I had found something they never gave me. Peace. I had spent years waiting for them to love me the way they loved her, for them to value me, to make me feel important. But I was done waiting. Now I had something far more powerful. My own strength. As I stood on the land my grandmother had left me, I realized that they had nothing left to fall back on. Their world had crumbled and they were left with nothing but their mistakes. But I had myself. And that, in the end, was more than they had ever given me. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need to get revenge in loud ways. The peace I had found in myself was all the revenge I needed. Now, when I think back on everything, the years of neglect, the choices they made, I realize something. I didn't need them. I never did. And that's how I finally became free.